he has to bring the same mentality, not be afraid to throw pawns forward like he did in that previous game, which eventually gave him all those chances, and he calculated so well. More importantly, he had a clock advantage. He had an extra minute or two on the clock over Magnus throughout the entire game, and that really got him close to victory. But in the meantime, repetition of game 2 of the day. Are we surprised that Hikaru is going back into this opening?
And this is where it changes. What we saw was a queen trade, but the bishop pawn had advanced up the board, and it looks like Hikaru did a little preparation. He switched it up a little, but we still have an endgame. The queens have been traded off, as Robert likes to call it, queenless middle game, because every other piece is on the board. Now, I have to say, when the match started, and Hikaru, after losing that first game, it looked like mission impossible. And Magnus knows that it's not going to be easy with the black pieces, but I'm still surprised that Hikaru has an approach to go for a queen trade so early on in a win-on-demand game.
Yeah, very rarely works against Magnus Carlsen to get the queens off and somehow outmaneuver him. And it clearly looks like Magnus has done his research too. Knight,
as we can see, to that rook on d1. And what he wanted to do was bring his own knight to the center of the board. Knight d4 was a huge threat on the board, taking advantage of that pin. Hikaru continues to develop, stopping that threat, brings the bishop to the e3 square, connects the rook. What he wants to do next is push that rook one step ahead, also signaling at a doubling up along the only open file on the board. You've got rooks, bring them on the open files.
Again, Hikaru has a big advantage on the clock already. Starting to slow down, Magnus.
Yeah, maybe it's the nerves.
He's phenomenal at it. I mean, he just plays all these great moves, and he spends little time doing so, and he often seems invincible until he plays someone like Magnus Carlsen. And I like what Magnus has done, because he pushes his pawns and trades off his bishop for the knight. But what he's been doing is taking control of squares. Oftentimes, we look at chess and see tactics. When we do our training positions, we're often looking at how can I checkmate my opponent or win some material. Here, he's making sure that the knight on c3, the only white knight, can't hop forward without a trade. And now the bishop on f3 won't jump to a new diagonal because the pawn on h5 takes care of the g4 square in the event of a knight trade. So I really like those last two moves from Magnus Carlsen. He's just taking care of his position. He is not taking it for granted. Every little situation, every little square, it matters.
Be the victor in Armageddon to take it to a reset. It's a lot to ask.
Sounds like a lot of winning.
Yeah, it's a lot to ask against Magnus Carlsen. But if anyone can do it, it is Hikaru Nakamura.
I think that Magnus Carlsen has this one under his control, especially after Hikaru's last move. I mean, he brings his bishop to attack the knight on f6, but he's allowed the black knight to hop into the center. So I just feel like Magnus doesn't really have true weaknesses in his position. It's just kind of simple for him to play now. And unless I'm overlooking something, maybe Hikaru has a hidden idea up his sleeve. I believe Magnus has this one under control, and he's ahead in the clock.
Qualified for event 2 in the Champions Chess Tour 2023. That means we will see Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, Wesley So, and Fabiano Caruana in event 2. Players will fight it out as well in event 2.
Neither of us played very well. I mean, we both had some very strange moments, especially I think when I lost in game 2. It was funny that I had to play Yang Yi twice. First in the winner's bracket, and then he managed to get through the loser's bracket after I beat him the first time. But yeah, very, very happy that I managed to win. Played in Almaty, the World Championships, and
Fabiano, we are super excited here in the studio. Fans are super excited because for winning Division 2, you qualify.
But it was also interesting to play some guys who haven't, let's say, made their mark on top-level chess yet. Also because you get, well, I'm so familiar playing, let's say, guys like Hikaru or Wesley or Magnus. It's still very chess-centric, of course. In terms of my favorite guest, well, we had some fun ones. I think Maurice Ashley was very fun. Levi Rosman, who's better known as Gotham Chess, was a very fun one. That was very personal because we really, I think, all of us opened up and we got a good dialogue going on. Maybe those are the two that stick out most. We also interviewed Hikaru, which was probably our most watched one, which was interesting because, Hikaru and I have always, I think, viewed each other as rivals for a long time, for, well over a decade. I mean, we were even playing when we were kids and he was a bit older than me.
And this match is still going on. Grand final in Division 1. It's must win for Hikaru Nakamura. We've had several moves on the board. Bring us up to speed, David.
Yeah, several moves, but huge developments. Magnus Carlsen now, I think, has a small advantage, if anything, and the winning chances for Hikaru Nakamura are minimal. You see it on Hikaru's face right now. The game has not gone that well for him. The pawn structure has been clarified. There have been a couple of piece trades since we last talked about the position, and Magnus is in full control, cruise control at this point. The Black Knight has gotten some nice juicy squares to jump into. The Black Rooks, as soon as they combine, that will be the end of the fun, and I think this game won't go that much longer. Someone contradict me, please, because I want some entertainment. I want a decisive result, but I don't see it happening, unfortunately. And, first move that came to my mind was jumping in with the knight, just because we look for forcing moves first. This does gain time, hitting the white rook. The white rook moves. I'm not sure where. Let's say it slides across, and now this knight could plant itself either now or in the next few moves on this nice square.
There is an active knight for white, and this is exactly what he's going for.
Yeah, it's what he has to go for if he wants to win this game. And maybe the problem here is that you're not quite in time for white. If you had one more move to double up your rooks now and infiltrate the black camp, then great, you might be able to win. But here, black can neutralize this by bringing his own rook back and sliding across. Just one trade of rooks is enough to ensure that white's rooks never, ever get into the black camp. It's important as well that in a line like this one, that the black knight is on this square, because after rook takes rook, the knight jumps back to defend everything. And here, if all the rooks disappear, symmetrical structure, white will never win this game. He's going for it, and I think the safest, at least, is to go back with the black rook. Maybe Magnus contemplating going more ambitious. No, he chooses a safe approach. I was going to say you could deliver a check, but why bother? You only need to draw. And once the rook lands on d8, Hikaru is going to struggle for winning chances.
No! We want Armageddon!
But this is such a clinical way to play. He just goes for the idea of getting all the pieces off the board and an endgame with just the knights. It looks like it's going to be the white pawns that will need defending once the knight comes back into action after the rooks are traded off. We all want the Armageddon, but that looks like a far-off dream right now.
Yeah, distant dream. And, OK, Magnus takes back with his knight.
A pair of rooks.
And you play b6, hoping to kick the knight. Rook takes knight is available for white, because when the knight takes on c6 for white, that is a fork no matter how black recaptures. And that's the one thing Magnus look out for. He has successfully done that. He is not going to fall victim to such a tactical shot.
Will save the day. And at the very minimum, instead, he just improves his structure. He pushes his pawn forward. Robert, it's a bunch of your ideas kind of combined. He wants to keep this one on tap for later. I'm not sure what the direct threat is, but at least it's tricky for Magnus to keep control over both sides of the board.
On the g5 pawn to keep that knight honest, but you see Magnus's last move. He slides his rook over to c8.
About the clock times, as Robert mentions as well, this one is not looking very promising right now. I still don't think white should lose with best play. I think you're okay here, despite giving up that pawn for not too much. But Hikaru, how does he at least ask one or two more final questions? Your plan on the board, Tanya, that knight kicked back. As soon as you have to start retreating.
Oh, wow. Look at that. That is class. That is just a whole different class. You know, he doesn't want to move that c-pawn, creating weaknesses in the center. Instead, he liquidates the queen side by advancing the other pawn, and now the rook will slide back, creating another weakness for white down on the a file, that a2 pawn. This is why it's called the Magnus touch.
Yeah. Impressive play. Hikaru, meanwhile, with a really creative knight retreat, he's holding things together, and I'm not sure Magnus wants to actually rush and recapture that white a-pawn, because there might be an annoying knight jump. OK, he has gone in. Now, white's knight is going to go over. Watch out for some forks, some checks. But no, Magnus steps out of all the problems, all of the tricks, and Hikaru's knight is caught in two minds. If it goes forward and takes a pawn, black's rook gets active, snaps off the white a2 pawn. And unfortunately, you have to make a decision. Hikaru only with 2 minutes, needing a win. But now black's rook is active, and yeah, it's still nowhere near a win for white, unfortunately.
He looks annoyed. Hikaru Nakamura, hope is running out. Here is the tournament trophy that probably Magnus Carlsen will win. Champions Chess Tour 2023.
Oh, that move is almost as nice as that trophy. He just gives that pawn where 2 white pieces can take it, and now he's saying if you take with the king, your king lost contact with the pawn that's behind it on f2. Thank you very much. If you take with the pawn, black springs free an outside pass pawn and some knight checks. I wasn't expecting that move. I was listening to you, Kaya, and suddenly I saw the move played, and I was just taken aback. That is beautiful tactical awareness from Magnus Carlsen. He is really earning this championship.
Is he finishing off in style here, Magnus?
He is, and I love Robert's reaction because every true chess player, when they see a move like that, it's like, yeah, you got to appreciate it. And this is what we call an invisible move, when you land something on a square that looks like it's protected multiple times. It looks impossible, but often that breaks the coordination in the enemy army. And look at Hikaru.
Look at the bar.
Yeah, he's got a lost position, and he knows it, unfortunately. Suddenly, too many problems. That white c pawn is about to fall off with a nasty check. That black h pawn, as Robert pointed out, running down the board, racing down to promotion soon. Actually, it's almost resignable, got to say.
Not just that, there's another problem. The knight can jump into the play by giving a check to the king and really creating all kinds of forks and attacks. Just amazing board vision here by Magnus. First, he breaks on the queen side and then on the king side, sacrificing a pawn. And this just looks like...
We have a result.
Over. Wow. We have a winner. Magnus Carlsen takes it. He wins the Airthing Masters, the very first event in the Champions Chess Tour 2023. We do see a smile on his face. And what a battle it's been, and what a fight Hikaru Nakamura has put on.